Blog Talk Radio.
Through the streets of Rage City, corruption is second nature. Safety compromised, gang violence and growing danger. Group of vigilantes flip the script and rip the page. Better protect your neck, here comes the PUNXofRAGE! Strictly underground. Strictly underground. Strictly underground. For us justice ain't given, so the punks are here to take it. Defend and protect the weak, avenge all those who didn't make it. Never turn the other cheek when facing the opposition. The only other cheek we turn is yours after a fist collision. Our mission in combat to break arms, necks, and spines. It's okay to couple joints, shoot, we on the front line. Serious reaction, prodigy and designer. The jawbreakers, dodgers, it's headbangers honor. Strictly underground.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. My name is Joe Curry. We're back. Let me bring in my man of the hour.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's up, sir?
There it is. All right, cool. We're back at the Blog Talk Technology. Boy, you know. Anyhow.
Yeah.
All right. This is our first show of the new year, 2024. Happy New Year, D.
Yes,
Happy
New Year, everybody.
Who's out there?
Happy New Year.
Back in full effect. We took some time off. The holidays were coming, and we just kind of went all the way into Black History Month, which is for the last 3 years, we've coordinated an event with Tertel Only, Father of the Black Age. Shout out to Tertel, where we do 4 weeks of talking to creators about the importance of the Black Age movement and what it means to the culture of comics as a whole. So tonight, got a special guest. Afrofuturism is in the title of a lot of things that she does. Ytasha Womack will be joining us tonight to discuss that and everything she's got going on. So that's going to be fun. She's been on the show before, but she's done more stuff since, I think it was like maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4. She's done a lot more since then. We're going to get into that. That's going to be fun to actually talk about. But usually prior to our guests coming on or prior to us getting into the meat of what our show is about, we do a pull list, which we talk about stuff that's going on in the culture. And since it's been a while, it's a few things to get into. Actually, something kind of major happened prior to us going on the show tonight. If you haven't heard, and we lost one of the greats today or earlier. Carl Weathers, you know him from the Rocky movies, Apollo Creed. He's been in Predator,
Action
Jackson, and just recently he was Grief Cargill in The Mandalorian, a show that I really enjoyed. Yeah, man. And so how they're gonna move forward with anything, because they got some big Mandalorian stuff in the works. I think a movie. And without him, that's definitely a hit. But I mean, rest in peace to him, and prayers to his family. That's just a big loss. About maybe a couple hours ago, I found out. And so, D, you were actually at a convention, at a sci-fi convention. How did people take it where you were? How did you take it?
Man, you know what? I don't think the news traveled to them. I got it. And, but it sucks, man, especially being at a sci-fi convention and then you, it just sucks, man. And people didn't know. I don't think people knew. And I didn't rock the boat, you know.
Right.
And plus, you know, well, not plus. Sadly, I don't even know how to describe it, but the sci-fi conventions, they're not really strongly diverse. It's a. I don't know if anybody knows. They're the first like nerds, you know, in popular geek culture, and a lot of, you know, like a lot of those people are older, as an older guard. It's not like in anime and comics where it's all ages.
Yeah.
You know, it's very older, and it's very white. You know,
right.
So you know, it's not a lot of people. Like it's just not a lot of diversity. So which is, you know, part of the importance of, you know, and the changing of the guard with, you know, Ytasha and everything with the black age with Turtel and all of that stuff, because, you know, we have to push that for the next generation, because we ain't going to be here forever, you know.
That's true. Yeah, it's very much true. And it seems like a battle that goes from generation to generation. The baton's been passed, and we got to keep that thing moving, man. But it was sad news. I was kind of thrown back, because I like I said, I've just watched the show, and it's one of those things where, like, you feel like somebody's literally right there one day, which shows you just how life is, you know, and then gone the next. You know, here one day and just gone the next. So it's like, that was a hit, man. So rest in peace to Carl Weathers, and you know, and prayers to his family, because, you know, that's a big deal. You know, outside of his entertainment factor, you know, he had a family, and you know, which is more important than anything else. So, you know, prayers out to all of them. One of the other things I wanted to hit on, and I won't do it. If we have time at the end of the show, I'll do what grind the gears. There's a certain couple things I've noticed as it relates to media and you know, podcasters and YouTubers, as it relates to the genres, you know, and how they go. If I don't get a chance tonight, I'll do it on the next show. But I'm gonna get into that now. I do want to talk about the series that just, I don't know, did you get a chance to watch the entire Echo series or any bit of Echo?
Yeah, I watched some of it. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched the first half.
So, you know, if anybody hasn't really, you know, those of us who were deep into the culture and deep into what Marvel was doing for the last 12 years, from the MCU's inception pretty much into Endgame, where it was just this crazy ride of just almost, you know, nonstop hit movies, right? They had a few clunkers in there, but for the most part, I mean, they were really good movies that led up to our, you know, the Endgame, which Avengers Endgame, which was like kind of like, for the most part, the finale of that story. And since then, it's been some movies, it's been some series that, you know, didn't quite hit for whatever reason, right? And it's kind of been a downer. And so what I don't like, I won't go all the way, but like if like a particular studio is in the slumps, or whatever the thing is, it don't have to be a studio. It could be a series. It could be anything. What I've noticed is that sometimes there are channels who are devoted to, no matter what the series does, or what the studio does, it's gonna be kind of hit with negativity. I mean, you know, people can do what they want to do, right? Okay, cool. But you know, so I've been noticing that. So I'm like, okay. So I got into this series. The reviews that were coming out early weren't necessarily spectacular, but I mean, they were decent. So the first couple episodes, I was like, you know, it was okay. I was kind of like on the fence. I kind of didn't really get into it, but I was tired, and I said, well, let me give this thing a chance when I'm fresh and I'm full of energy and I can kind of go watch the whole thing. I enjoyed the series a lot. You know, okay. I really did. Like I didn't, you know, there are some things you can kind of point out if you want to like nitpick it, like and say, well, X, Y, Z. But for the most part, as a piece of it's a five episode series. I'm sorry, that's what I was trying to say, and it actually is really good. And the Kingpin, I won't try to pronounce the actor's name. I mess it up every time, but the actor who portrays him is brilliant. Like, he's been in Punisher, he's been in Daredevil. If you watch the Netflix series, the Marvel series on Netflix, he just rocks that role. So I enjoyed it, and so I just kind of wanted, because I haven't been on the show and I haven't been a chance to really get out there and say it. So I'm saying it now. I really enjoyed the Echo series, and for those who I heard people give up on it on the second episode, the first episode. Go in there and give it another shot. If you feel so inclined. I thought it was, when you get the whole thing, it was worth it. But anyhow, what did you think, D, of what you saw?
I thought it was cool. I didn't think it was a dumpster fire like people were trying to say. It didn't hold me, which is why I didn't watch it. But I'm good at like differentiating, like this ain't for me, or this is for me, but it didn't hit, but it's not like a dumpster fire. Like, I know the difference. Like, not like I'm being nice because I'm not nice. You know what I'm saying? But
right.
I know the difference. I know the difference. Excuse me. I know the difference. And I didn't see it as a dumpster fire. It just didn't hold it for me. But I mean, including the Daredevil episode. But I did like the Daredevil episode, and so that's where it was for me.
Okay, that's fair, But like I just said to the audience at large, and when you fresh and you want to you want to try to give something a try that one more time, like from the beginning, and see if you dig it. A couple other things before we bring our guest on. I wanted to send a shout out to Ty Johnson and Larry Stroman. And the return of Tribe that they announced, a comic that came out, I believe, in 1993. It was from the initial launch of Image Comics. I think that book did $1 million in sales, which was a big deal back then. They're bringing the band back together, and they're gonna bring Tribe back, which I hope to get one, if not two of them on this show to talk about it. I think that'd be great. I just came in contact with Ty Johnson, so hopefully I can send him a message and see if I can get him on the show. I think that was dope. And then lastly, the evolving landscape of comic books as we know it. Different ways that you get the book out is just crazy now. So Image Comics founder and Marvel artist, well, actually used to draw for Marvel, still does, Rob Liefeld, he just dropped a book called Last Blood. If you're familiar, he's done Young Blood and Team Young Blood and just a bunch of comics when he was working with Image. And so he sold it through kind of like this app, well, not kind of, but through this app called Whatnot, which is kind of like, it kind of reminds you of an auction type spirit. It's live selling of your book, and which is way different, and it's very limited. He's only going to do a few of these, and so people fans rushed in and picked him up, and he brilliant rollout. He's got different covers, different you can get a sketch cover, a very limited amount of these. I mean, he really, really, really pushed something different. And from what I'm hearing and I'm looking at people who received it, it was received very well. So shout out to them for that, and just a new method that others may follow to get your content out. So I'm going to be looking at that as it goes forward. It was the Whatnot app, and the comic is Last Blood by Rob Liefeld. I thought it was fascinating to see. But all that said, time for the main event. I said at the beginning of the show, our special guest is in the building. You know what I mean? When you talk about Afrofuturism, her name has to come up. She's done so many things. We was talking behind the scenes yesterday and the day before about how much she's accomplished. I'm proud of the things she's accomplished. It's a incredible thing to witness all the stuff that's been done. You know, she's done books. If you want books, look at Rayla 2213, Rayla 2212, Afrofuturism. I'm sorry, it's just so many things. The post-black, how a new generation redefine. Sorry about that. It's on Amazon. Oh wow, post-black, how a new generation is redefining African American identity. Another novel. If you want to talk about accomplishments, she has an exhibit and a film at the Smithsonian. You know, we're gonna be talking about that. Also, a new animation that's on the horizon. We're gonna be getting into that. So, without further ado, and you know how the people are, D. I welcome Miss Ytasha. Oh yes, Madam Womack, are you in? Can you mic check?
I am here.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. I should say.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. This is really great. You guys are so awesome, and I'm just excited to be able to talk about comics and Afrofuturism and everything in between.
We want to talk about deep and personal. No, I'm just kidding. No, we're gonna get into that. I want to really talk about that. Me and you talked about it yesterday and before, and I've said it to you even beforehand. You know, we're on this line right here. We're all creators, you know, and Ytasha's been putting in work and just, I mean, and I always joke, man, but she's going all around the world, spreading this culture and spreading what Afrofuturism is. The first question, before I get into what we're, you know, celebrating the Black Age, the term Afrofuturism, you know, I looked it up, but just so people who are listening, what does that term mean, and how is it defined? Well, I guess it's the same question.
Well, you know, Afrofuturism is really blossoming right now. As you mentioned, currently there's a show, an exhibit at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is part of the Smithsonian, one of the Smithsonian museums. There's an Afrofuturism exhibit there, which I'm featured in, along with many other notables. And the Carnegie Hall did an Afrofuturism festival last year, which I was a co-curator for. And there have been, you know, just more films and artists and creators not only using the term to describe their work, but also helping to push the work forward. And when I talk to people about what Afrofuturism is, I tell them that it's a way of looking at futures or other alternate realities, but you're doing so through these Black cultural lenses. Wherever Black people are around the world, they have a relationship to time and space, reflected in these, you know, in our culture. And that storytelling lens, or that lens of philosophy or understanding yourself, is essentially, you know, one that's Afrofuturistic. So it integrates, or rather intersects, imagination, liberation, technology, and mysticism. It can be evident in films like a Black Panther, or comic books, or you know, dance and music, like, you know, you think about Sunrise, Janelle Monáe, or house music, or just all these electronic innovations in music. But it's also evident in just how your relationship to the world. And I like reminding people that all cultures have a relationship to space and time. When I talk about Afrofuturism, you know, I talk about that relationship being expressed through maybe African cosmologies or stories of origin or philosophies, African diasporic philosophies, but also evident in, you know, our art and culture and how we gather and all of these can be reflections of just how people see themselves in the universe, and therefore how they see themselves in the future. But yeah, and so that's it in a. I can't say it, that's it in a nutshell. But sometimes people will say, "Oh, wow, Afrofuturism, so many things." It's like, well, not necessarily. It's just that it's having a relationship to Black culture in the future, and because we sort of center Sankofa, the Akan idea of the fact that you can always go back, or you can take the best of the past and use that to build new futures. You know, we're both reclaiming our relationship in these historical lineages and philosophies and ideas as we're imagining new worlds and futures and using them to kind of inform where we are today. Something you do all the time, Joe Curry, when you're making and drawing, writing your comics.
Tear in the right eye this time, you know. I try, you know, but so I kind of in literal sense wrote the book on it, but I kind of wanted to get that just from you, and then just we go come right back to it and talk about other things. But I want to get in, you know, this event that we're doing and you know, these series of shows. And we said in the beginning of the show, you know, shout out to Churchill Only and shout out to everybody who in the previous years who've done this in Black History Month. But Churchill Only is the father of the Black Age of comics. You know, he started it here in Chicago, early 80s. I think the first show was in 93, if I'm not mistaken. This is going off sheer memory. I should, you know, and my first one I think was 2006. But I want to give him a quick shout out because, you know, he's the one who's putting these things together for us. And, you know, we're going to be talking to him at the end of this series. But just kind of wanted to make sure that, you know, we know, everybody know, you know, exactly what we're doing. So I know me and you.
And I should say too, you know, that Churchill's Black Age in Comics, that was the first comic book convention I ever attended.
Oh wow!
And yeah, it was the first one I attended, and I was attending it around the time that I learned about the term Afrofuturism. You know, I like to say I was an Afrofuturist and didn't know I was, but around the time I sort of learned the term was also, it aligned with the time when I went to my first Black Age event and probably met you, Joe, among others who were there at Kenwood High School.
Okay.
And I just, you know, and so when I wrote my book, Afrofuturism, and then my most recent book, Black Panther, A Cultural Exploration, to tell with someone I interviewed because his work in comics and supporting indie spaces and pushing the Black Age, I think is why we're having these blossoming moments in Afrofuturism.
Okay. That's what's up. Shout out to Churchill for that, man. Like I said, you know, that's I remember me and you, we actually did a show. Yeah, I remember that. And we did one at DuSable Museum. I think we did two at DuSable Museum. So I just wanted to kind of, you know, put that out there and let the world know what's up. So yeah. Also, all right. So, you know, when I mentioned in the beginning, you know, the Smithsonian or having the film there, and I believe you spoke there as well. I wanted to ask, how did that come into being? Like, how did that manifest and it get from the drawing board to where it was or where it is?
Well, a couple things. And let me say that there's two things going on, you know, in the busy lives of us creators. There's the Afrofuturism exhibit that's currently at the Smithsonian, but then there's Naya and the Multiverse, which is the animation that I wrote about Afrofuturism and a girl from Chicago learning about the multiverse theory, and that's currently at the Adler Planetarium. So, or rather, will be at the Adler Planetarium February 17th, planned daily for the next year. So those are two different projects, both very exciting. So whether you're in D.C. or Chicago, you have something Afrofuturist to immerse yourselves in. But the exhibit that's currently at the National Museum of African American History and Culture was curated by Kevin Strait. And, Kevin Strait talks about how the museum had acquired the mothership from George Clinton Parliament Funkadelic concerts. And they acquired it, some years back. And he tells the story of having acquired it and then thinking about how is this situated in Black culture. And through that, started engaging around material and Afrofuturism. And so that exhibit that was put together is one that highlights both these, African references that are in Afrofuturist works today. It highlights some of the writers, some artifacts from these writers, Samuel Delany. I think it has Samuel Delany and Octavia Butler's typewriters in the exhibit.
Oh, wow.
And then there's a big music section, which has costumes from Outkast, and Janelle Monáe, and Nona Hendrix of LaBelle. And, it's really just this, in addition to instruments that belong to Sun Ra. Sun Ra, the jazz musician who really, innovated, not just avant-garde jazz, but space jazz, and had this mythology that he was from Saturn. Not only are his costumes there, but also the space harp that he played. And that space harp was made by a Chicagoan, Phil Coran. Sun Ra came of age. He kind of became Sun Ra while he was here in Chicago. And artists who he influenced or who, Phil Coran was one of the founders of the AACM, this jazz collective that also was pushing sort of, an articulation of a jazz that spoke to larger space and cosmology. And that that collective, which has, dozens of members and continues to play today, they're featured in the museum. In addition to Pete Cozy, who provided a lot of the psychedelic elements on Miles Davis's psychedelic albums, like Agartha and others. And that's all, that Chicago history is all a part of this broader music story where, again, we're looking at an Outkast or, DJ Jazzy Jeff and these musicians and artists who are always sort of referencing space in their music or using innovative technologies to push what the future of sound could be. And we're creating worlds with their music. So, and then, of course, there's highlights on comics. A lot of Milestone comics are featured. Some other notables who are in our comic circles, like John Jennings are featured, and, several others. And so it's a really, really great exhibit, and it's been extended so that it will be up through August. So that gives you guys some time to go to D.C. and check it out. But the other project, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add, that seems like a must. I might have to, I've been there once, but before that, that seems like something I would like to actually to take in, because I saw, like, when it first dropped, and I saw all the, you dropped a bunch of pictures, and it was just one of those kind of, it was a milestone moment, it was kind of like, damn, that's a heck of a thing to actually see. And like I said, I know that you travel a lot and do a lot of things, but boom, there it is. It was just dope to see. So I hope to be able to get out there. I'm doing a couple of things this week, this year, so I hope to be able to get out there and check it out, like live and in person.
No, you have to, and I would suggest everyone does, because instinctively, if you're kind of in the culture or around Black culture, a lot of some of these ideas around Afrofuturism. You've engaged with it through one artist or, some text you've read before. but to see it, elements of it all together, the visuals, and to hear the music, and to see, Sun Ra's application to be an intern and study with NASA so that he could use space sounds, to see something like that really brings it in together. And I just think it's a transformative experience.
That's what's up. Now you've sold me on it too. So now I'm gonna have to try to make that pilgrimage and see it, like I said, with my own eyes and ears. But D, you got anything, a question or like to jump in?
Yeah. What is how has how has Afrofuturism, obviously futurism is in the title, so it's always moving forward to the future. How has the commerce and the marketing been with Afrofuturism? I ask that because a lot of times when we talk about things that, for lack of a better term, are black-centered stuff, the question that always comes into mind is, well, it doesn't economically always transfer overseas and in different regions, like middle of America. How has Afrofuturism transcended and transferred in the other markets, and how is it received outside of even with some of our people, how has it been received in a commercial sense?
Well, there's a range of excitement, actually, because when there's a lot of focus and studies around the future. In colleges, people are studying science fiction and looking at that as ways to think about the future. You have future studies, you have futures conferences, so one of the interesting things about Afrofuturism, I think there's a general optimism within it, this kind of inherent tale of resilience. That's a part of it, where you say, okay, we can't say there is no future because we have to create one and build and work towards it. But the other side, I think, that excites a lot of people about Afrofuturism is that it reminds people that there are other cultural frameworks for thinking about the future, so that you can pull from, not just those from the African diaspora, but there's indigenous futurism and Latin futurism. You have people all over the world have been creating stories about time and space and futures, and have some either really deep philosophies around it or have artwork that speaks to these things. You think about certain traditional African mask work, how some of these masks are about a kind of transcendence, right? Of pushing past an earthly realm by connecting with something that can be earthly or can be otherworldly, right? So that's inherent in that is a relationship to time and space. So, but, the other side of it is the comics, the stories, the perspectives, they all give other insights into how to build a future and how to value humanity. So I've found a lot of excitement or intrigue because sometimes, future spaces or spaces that call themselves being devoted to futures weren't engaging all perspectives around the world. So Afrofuturism, because, we have sort of this title and we have works and people embracing the term, it's just a reminder that people of African descent and on the continent have been thinking about futures and creating around it for a very long time. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, there's Afrofuturists or Afrofuturist communities or sometimes African futurist creators that are in Ghana, in Kenya. Afrofuturism is very popular in Brazil. a lot of both scholars and people writing literature, people creating comic books. It's, you have books coming out of the Caribbean. I saw like futures-based stories, an anthology that came out of, the Black creative scene out of London. You've had art shows across Europe that are talking about these ideas. The Black Fantastic art show that was up and put together by another curator, who whose brother, Kodwo Ishan, wrote some of the first Afrofuturist seminal texts in the 90s. So I just, so it's a global exploration and one that a lot of people have found connection to. There's, a lot of Afrofuturist creators in the Dominican Republic. A friend of mine who's been creating, from the perspective of being, an Afro-Latino guy in the Dominican Republic. So I just think that, it's a reminder that as local as some of these expressions can be, all of us are from Chicago, there's people all over the world who are engaging with these ideas, creating, using the term Afrofuturism or some derivative of it, and other people, around the world who just, inspired and like the works. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Shout out to my man Dinku. Dinku always, he has a slogan like bigger than local. I always shout out to Dinku, and it's funny when I always, maybe I'm just petty and I love like 8th grade humor or something, but every time I see Afrofuturism and the people that represent Afrofuturism at a high level, including myself, I always think about the future, and it always takes me back to the Richard Pryor joke. I forget what movie he was talking about, but it was a movie he went to see, and he was just like, man, it was a movie about the future, and the joke was basically like, I'm not telling it right, but he was basically ain't no black people in the movie. They don't plan for us to be here. I always think about that Richard Pryor joke, and I always laugh, So salute to you and everybody like a part of that movement. It's sometimes it's a thankless job, and so it's really cool that you do that and you move, and really like I always love seeing you in the scene and in doing the thing. Like I think the last time we were all together was PocketCon.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's what's up. Yeah, go ahead. Go. Were you gonna say, Ytasha or D?
No, I was just gonna say PocketCon was great, and seeing everyone there. But so much of this Afrofuturist work, it comes out of community. It's not a solo sojourn, right? Thinking about these ideas, talking about them, creating, sustaining ourselves as creatives, it evolves through connecting with other people who are working with these ideas, whether it's at PocketCon, where we're, of course, making work, showcasing work, and sharing it with kids and families, but also, being in, other spaces in universities or other kinds of artist collectives or, people getting together just reading Black science fiction books. I mean, all of this community conversation
gives you the fuel.
Yeah.
No, I say it gives you the fuel. Yeah, man. Because we talked about we used to do drinking draws and just creative. I think once you get into that circle of where be it at a show or a convention where we were just at, or just amongst each other, that sort of that thing it comes to life, which is one of the things I wanted to ask, and I don't think I asked the last time. We all do this thing. It's a grind. A lot of us do it on the independent level, or some of us have you've done some stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about the Black Panther book. I know you've done a lot of indie stuff, and it's a grind. What's the inspiration? Like, what gets you inspired to go out or to create and then put it out into the world?
great question. And I don't know. I mean, I think I used to read, books and they would talk about people who are artists or creators, and they would say, they create because they have to create. That I was reading that before I thought of myself as an artist. And as I started embracing that term, I thought about that. I mean, it seems like the thing you're supposed to do. And because there's connectivity to the ideas that are in the work, I think that in part fuels it, but I think also, knowing that there's a reality to these kinds of ideas, there becomes a real excitement about wanting to put it into book form or story form and, create more experiences so that people can have other slices of insights into humanity.
Okay. All right. That's a big slice right there. Putting that big responsibilities on your shoulder right there, right? You've been powering this, so far. So I know it's others in the works too, but like I've said this before. Your name comes up a lot as it relates. So that's what's up. Just to want to carry that torch, just for and get that inspiration like that. Because we talk, behind the scenes of what gets you going. This comes from a number of places to create. I want to kind of get into what you mentioned earlier, and which is Naya and the Multiverse debuting at the Adler Planetarium February 17th. Animation wrote. How did that come? Like now you've covering all the novels. You got a graphic novel that we talked about. We're going to talk about that later. How did the Naya project come into being, and what can we expect from that?
Well, the Naya project is one that I co-wrote with, Taylor. Taylor was one of the co-creators of the WakandaCon.
Okay.
And we worked as partners with the Adler in putting together the Afrofuturism Nights that they were doing in 2019 and at the top of 2020. We created some experiences. I created some experiences around my book, Rayla 2212, that were immersive, involved dance and music. And we were asked if we would like to write an animation. And so we had the opportunity to write the animation and serve as a producers for it. Well, and essentially we were asked we would like to write one of the Sky shows. And we came up with this narrative of a girl from Chicago named Naya who is looking to understand who she is in the universe and then gets to learn multiverse theory. So it's a half-hour piece. It's an animation. And I think it'll be exciting for a lot of people because you get to see Naya thinking about her relationship to space and times and ancestors. And, she wants to be a scientist. And she's thinking about things that she's learned around culture that come out of blues music or other African, philosophies that she's kind of heard her grandparents talk about. She thinks about that, but then, she gets to have, and I won't tell you the whole story, but she also gets to learn about actual multiverse theory and think about these things as being in conversation with one another. And I just thought that it was really great that the Adler Planetarium was supporting that project. We had an opportunity to interview a lot of scientists about multiverse theory, talking to theoretical physicists who could sort of break down what was possible and what wasn't. And then we used our imaginations to kind of tell this tale. And it was great. It was a great experience working with them. And I'm even more excited because the project debuts February 17th. It'll be running 3 times a day, 7 days a week for the next year. And on Wednesdays, you'll have 2 evening screenings.
I was just about to ask that.
Right. So admission to see the film comes with admission to go to the Adler Planetarium.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I live in the city. I will be seeing that, so that's gonna happen. And I advise everybody who's listening, go and check that out when it debuts. Or you got a whole year, so don't let a year go by without going down and checking it out. Shout out to the chat and folks in there. It's so many things. Let me see. I want to get into. I know I can't really talk really too much about the Black Panther, but I got to say a little bit about it, and we may come back to this at another show. But it was a book that you put together, or that was put together. Black Panther: A Cultural Exploration. If a person wants to pick this book up, this book it goes deep into the mythos of Black Panther, creators who've been involved, people who've been affected by it. It's a great book. We're gonna maybe circle back one day to talk about it in depth, but you can look it up. Black Panther Cultural Exploration. Where can a person pick that up if they don't see you directly?
Oh, I mean, you can order it at your favorite bookstore. You can order it on Amazon. You could order it on any of the indie book sites. You can get the book wherever it's easiest for you to order it. And it's a really fun book to put together. And you didn't mention, Joe, that you're actually one of the persons interviewed in the book.
Another tier, but go ahead.
Yeah,
yes,
but
indeed.
It was a pleasure because writing this book was really exciting, and it was a unique challenge and opportunity because there are a lot of people who are Black Panther fans. Many became super fans when the film came out. And you also have people who have been fans of the comics. But not many people have read every comic from, say, 1966 to the present. And so, people may have read certain eras of comics, as the books were coming out. So it was fun to be able to take all of those issues, talk about who wrote what and when and why and what was happening, but also to do some deep dives around the subjects that they were talking about, what cultural moments in history they were pulling from, what some of the inspirations were. There's a lot of Black Panther has a lot of parallels with some other, leaders. And there's, a lot of interesting things from both Native American history, African diasporic histories, Latin histories, which helped really shape the character and played a role into how Wakanda evolved over time as different writers had a chance to write about it. So to be able to write about that and then kind of give like a people's history where, I got to talk to creators such as yourself, some in indie spaces and lifelong fans who could sort of talk about their memories of reading the comic, what they thought, when different series came out was really, really great. And Tertel was even interviewed for it. Tertel remembered things of early Black Panther appearances in the Fantastic Four comic, and he talked about that. I talked to other people who, they remembered different eras and had different thoughts about it and their excitement or the storylines they're most attracted to. And like I said, all these cultural references. So I'm looking forward, to coming back so we can do a real deep dive on the storylines and what they were pulling from. But the book itself is a real collector's edition. It has all kinds of images. What did you think when you saw the book, Joe?
First of all, the first thing I did was scroll and look at the table of contents to find exactly where and when I was in. I did do that. I did that in front of you, actually. But no, I thought it was dope, to cover that, because it's, like you said, it's a long history, and you get into that. What interested me the most was the different, and I told you this, but the authors who were involved in writing who had were the ones, you know, you covered, who you know, their runs on the book and you know, how that happened. You know, because I discussed, I'm not going to go into, but the ones I really, really enjoy, you know, as far as that interested me the most, because I always wondered, especially I'm, you know, writing too, how do you approach doing this character, and, you know, how do you approach, like, you know, because this is a big, huge world, how are you going to take it? You know, which beats are you going to hit on the most? And that interests me the most. But overall, the whole book, like you said, it's a collector's item, or it's something that you should have in your library if you're a Marvel fan or a Black Panther fan, whichever. It's a dope joint. So before when we circle back and do this, I'm going to go ahead and do a deep dive in it and have all my details, my highlighter marker, everything. And I'm going to ask you some hardcore questions about it. D, you have anything?
Yeah. I want to go back. I didn't get to ask this question before. I want to go back. What was with the book that you co-wrote? I forget the name of the person you said you co-wrote this a book with. What was their name?
I'm trying to think of which book you're talking about. I did a hip hop book.
The last segment.
The Naida and the Multiverse, you're talking about the animation? Yeah. Okay, that one was the animation at the Atlas.
It was a script. I'm sorry, script. It was like a script for the animation. What is the process like? And I'm always curious of, like, when people collaborate and co-write something, like, you know, because a lot of people have different ways. I've seen people act out the story and then they write it down. I've seen people go back and forth, like sending, I did this page and I did this page and I did this, and, you know, and they just collaborate. What is your process with co-writing a script or animation, more or less?
Well, you know, well, there's the process that you would have if you were writing it alone, and then there's the process you have when you're doing it with someone, right? And so, and writing it with someone, the fun part is that we get to talk through what we want in the story. You know, you kind of have you talk about the arc of the story, you know, how it's going to begin, how it's going to end. We talked about what we thought what character traits we wanted the main character to have, who would she interact with. There's this idea of just like the frame of how you tell a story, and then it becomes, okay, the elements that you're going to put in that story, and the ideas that you want to break down, and then where you would talk about those ideas in the story, right? So you kind of talk through these sort of ideas so you have a general outline of kind of where you want to go. And there's a lot of research involved. There are a lot of things because Taylor and I are so, like, immersed in Afrofuturist world, and we like science and we like African philosophy. You know, there are a lot of references we were kind of able to pull from. And a lot of books that we have at our disposal that we could reference. One great book was African Cosmos, that was put out by the African Art Museum at the Smithsonian, and that had, like, a lot of scholarly articles on something called archaeoastronomy, or just relationships that different cultures have to the stars. So we got to have those sort of references. We had opportunity to talk to the head of the African Art Museum at the Smithsonian, you know, to make sure we were dotting our I's and crossing our T's when we were talking about some of these African cultural elements and relationships to the sky. We interviewed these theoretical physicists. So after we had this sort of general outline, we then went and started pulling more information and then looking at where that information would go in the story. And so I wrote the initial draft. Taylor, she went through with her notes and edits. And, you know, we evolved these next drafts kind of going through it. And then after, you know, we went through our versions of the draft, then we get notes from the planetarium and from the scientists and from, you know, others who are just kind of looking at the story to make sure that everything's aligned. And then we take those notes and then, you know, you evolve the draft. And then sort of move from there, you know, recommending various artists and so forth who could help with the next level of the project. So that's what we did. And the great thing is, you know, we got along really well. We were writing this project as you're coming out of the first year of the pandemic. So we're writing this just as people are getting their vaccines, but still not quite out there in the world.
Right.
And so it's very comforting to be writing about this sort of cocoon in our own ways, but being able to talk about our lives, our experiences, and then going into writing the world of this story and just making sure that it all aligns.
Man, y'all put y'all work in on that joint.
Thank you.
Props to you, both of you on that one, man, and everybody who put that together. That sounds like I can't wait to go and check it out. Cause I you know, just on the sheer writing tip, like that's some work right there.
I think you're really gonna like it. And again, you know, it's not just there's our imagination around things. You know, how you bring these things to life. But we did have to work with actual science theory and science facts, and be able to relay those in ways that, you know, our audiences could easily understand.
Okay.
And that was really fun.
I got it. Okay. I'm and you know what else? I'm gonna admit this right on live radio as it relates. I've lived in this city my whole life. You know, I've never stepped foot in the planetarium. So this is gonna be.
This is your opportunity.
Look, right. So I'm like, this is my chance to do a lot as it relates. So I will be seeing it, and I will be going there and checking it out. And like I just said a moment ago, props to you both for putting that kind of work in to put that project out. That sounds like y'all went ahead and you know, I mean, did your due diligence. When we do this stuff and we talk about it, you know, creating comics, creating fiction, just getting into the stuff that we're passionate about as we go on this path that we're all on. The fun part of it, I always like to talk because when you first start, it's very dreamy. You know how it is. You man, I can't. What if? You know, right? Is there if you haven't done it or accomplished it yet, is there a dream project? Anything you would like to do? Is there something that you would really like to just? If infinite budget, it's whatever you would like to do. Do you have a particular thing, item, place, story, film, play, book that you would like to do, or anything? I'm just saying, as a dream project, what would that be?
A dream project? Well, one of the things that I really wanted to do was to build and expand on the Rayla 2212 world.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that would be, you know, a lot of fun. I wrote 2 books in that world, and to be able to do like a series or a film, you know, and sort of these animations around that character and more experiences, that I think would be among the things that would give me glee. In addition to just supporting Born Peace.
No, that's what's up, man. Yes, you know, because I was wondering, I was like, okay, because that's yours, right? That's your creation, and to be able to come back and really put the juice in on that's the bread and butter, man. That's everything, you know, to have your baby.
What's your favorite medium to create in? Is it, you know, and why? What is your favorite, like, you know, because there's tons of ways that you write, but what's your favorite medium to create and write in, whether it's comics or, you know, animation or what, and why?
It depends on how the story comes to me. So some stories, let's put it this way. If it's a story with a lot of big visuals, it could be faster to get it out as a book if I'm just working by myself, right? When you decide that you want it to be a comic, which can be dope as well, you're engaging with another person, and then there's the time and the space for them to write, for them to draw and to color the piece, right? And, there's some stories I come up with, and it's like, initially it's like, okay, I see this as a comic first. I see it as a graphic novel, because the visuals are so clear for me. And, and so I guess for me, and I love writing films too. So I love writing screenplays. I mean, that's writing screenplays are a lot of fun. I can't say, maybe I don't have a favorite, but I could say if it's just me and my own volition, sometimes the easiest thing to do is to just write it as a novel.
Okay.
But there's stories I've come up with, like it comes to me and it's like, man, it's simpler to write this as a novel, but I'm not able to write it as a novel. And I'm like, okay, this is a screenplay, so write it as a screenplay. Now, if you write it as a screenplay and then you're like, okay, I want to write it as a novel, while I'm, going around pitching or developing it as a screenplay, that's one thing, right?
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, literally, I had a story idea. I started writing it as a novel, and it wasn't working. And it's like, this is a screenplay. So writing as a screenplay just came way easier.
Okay. That's when you're in the early stages of that's when the creative juices is coming out of that place, and it's about to be born. I'm not a screenwriter, so I wouldn't be able to, but like I would have to. It would be a comic for me, comic or bust. Okay, so it's people who listen to this or who've heard about the stuff you've done. If I'm a young person, or if I'm just a creative who wants to kind of come into this zone or come into this space and create some stuff. I want to be an Afrofuturist creator, or just a creator in general. Young person coming up. Any advice if I'm Ytasha, what would I do to get started? What would be my first step on that path? In your opinion, if I'm gonna start my journey as a creator.
Well, one thing, if you're a writer and you're looking to write, I would say keep a journal and just be in the habit of writing all the time. Even if you don't have projects, just, make sure you're kind of writing on a regular basis, because writing in a journal helps fine-tune. It's a good way to kind of just clear your head, but it's also a good way to help fine-tune your voice. Okay. And, another tip I would have is to make sure you're doing a lot of reading, because you have to write about something. And you might need other reference points beyond just your own personal experiences. So okay. I think, so I would say the writing and the reading, of course, reading a lot of things you're interested in. Read works that people say are good works, and read things that you just have an interest in, so that you have a reference point when you start writing your own stories. And, you can see how other people have told stories and what they're pulling from. And so you're pulling from your life, you're pulling from these other ideas that you're interested in. So that would be it. That would be my initial point. Just to develop the craft piece. And then right. Beyond that, it's literally, okay, then write your, whatever it is you want to write, whether it's a screenplay or a book or short stories, just start writing it. And if you can, connect with other people who are doing the same thing or something similar, so that you have kind of a circle of some artists who, you can reference things with, or who, you know, you can help be your mutual supports. And, you know, finding community. Yeah. And just keep engaging in different aspects of the arts. So it's because you're a writer, you know, I mean, go to dance shows, go see plays, go to music concerts, go, you know, explore your interest. And that just helps to stretch you so that you have these other, again, reference points and things that you can talk about in your writing.
I'm gonna take some of that advice for myself. I'm a not so young creator, but I'm gonna take that for me for a few of those. I said, hey, that's not a bad idea when I was listening. But anyway, straight up, you know, because sometimes here's the thing about that. I'm gonna open it up, man. Sometimes you get stuck. At least me. I won't speak for the both of you, but I'll get stuck in that moment when I'm just reading and consuming the thing that I'm in. And I know I shouldn't be, or I shouldn't just be doing that, and I know better. But sometimes you just fall into that, I don't know, to that thing where I'm like, I'll go into a mode where I'm just reading comics. Then that's it. I'm not really reading any novels or taking any other type of outside artistic stimulation. I'm like, man, that's, you know, so when you saying that, I'm like, yeah, that's true. Because sometimes you get something out of it. Like D, he does multiple things from artistically, and you do as well. And I'm pretty much, for the most part, comic book creator. So sometimes I got to step outside of that and see other artistic things just to get that, you know what I mean? To just, yeah. So you're right. I feel you on that, man. I know better.
Yeah. And I think it's being tough for some people because it is a grind sometimes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
It could be a grind doing the work. You want to get it done. You want to be on a mission. You want to, you know, all of that. I see this with guys especially. So they're just like, I just want to get it done. If I take 2 seconds off to, you know, then it's not going to happen, and all is going to fail, and then, you know, the world's going to hate me. And, you know, but, you know, the thing is you need kind of these refreshes of, you know, living a life of engaging in other art forms. You know, and it might, you know, you might find that there's some other storytelling avenues in those art forms that help you. You know, I'm a dancer. You know, I grew up dancing. I always thought of my writer life and my dancer life as being two different things. And one day, you know, John Jennings, who we all know and love, he read my upcoming graphic novel, and he said, "Oh, you write like a dancer." So that kind of insight made me realize, like, wait, these things aren't two different universes. They're related. You know, dance can be a language, a way of relating in the world, you know, and that informs my storytelling. And the more I recognize that, you know, the more you can sort of build from it. But I'm sure someone could look at someone's writing and say, you write like a plumber, right? Like, there's probably techniques and approaches that come with being a plumber, that if the plumber is also a writer, informs how they tell a story. Not necessarily the subject, but certainly how they tell the story. And you don't even know what that is until you start acknowledging the art of these things.
I'm about to do a deep dive into Rayla now. I still have the novel. I'm about to go and see these dancing words upon this novel you know that I have. I'm going to check this out and put that theory to the test completely. No,
you know, I can't wait till you no, it's true. Go ahead, guys. I cut you off.
No. I was just echoing the sentiments. It's true. Like, you know, I have. Like, people know me as a hip hop artist, and they know me also, like, I guess more now. So it's as a comic book writer. But you know what people don't know is my first stage and first writing, like, whole rigmarole was in theater, like as a playwright in theater. You know, and director in theater, and that's why our shows look the way they look. But even before that, like, I am my family, I come from a junk dealer and a cement contractor. So I didn't even always notice this, but I do write like a junk collector. I do write like a cement contractor. Like it
right.
totally
and how does that show up in your writing?
I won't give it away because it's my secret sauce, but I do see it. Let me try to see what's the nugget that I'll get. You know what? It shows up in the muse for me in terms of as a junk dealer, I understand like the value that some antiques and inequities have, and like when you think you have nothing, you actually have something. So it's like taking inventory, like the process of taking inventory really, makes sense to me, and I always take inventory about like skills and problems and all of that when I'm writing a story. And so like me doing inventory, I learned that from being like a junk dealer as a child junk dealer with my grandfather. So that's one little nugget of how that goes into my writing. Like I really take an inventory of skills and things.
I'm gonna have to explore myself when this is done. I'm gonna have to explore how I come into the written word. Y'all just got me thinking now. I had never. That's a both of you. That's a great thing to actually consider creatively. I'm really gonna take a look at stuff I've done. But anyhow, a quick one I got, and we can move into just a couple other things. We're gonna start winding down in a minute, everybody. We all do this stuff, and we spoke about it. It's a grind. Like you sometimes, when you go into that space, your head's down, you're moving forward, right? Not really taking in or taking the flowers or taking a moment to, to breathe and take it all in, right? What's one of the more rewarding things that you've experienced on this journey that you've been on, Ytasha? What's like one of the things you go, you know what? That's what's up. What's been one of the rewarding moments or moments?
At PocketCon, there was a friend of mine from high school who came with his sons, and they bought the Black Panther book. And the next day, or at least 2 days later, he sent me a text, and it was about his youngest son, who maybe was 7 years old. And he said how his 7-year-old son, loved the Black Panther book. He went to sleep with the Black Panther book. He came to school with him the next day to show all his friends. Like, he loved that book. And at the age of 7, he's in the early stages of reading, right? So he's going to grow into being able to read the book. But the pictures and the images that are in the book, from, images of Black Panther to images of, different African liberators to, images of African-American civil rights pioneers to astronauts to, all of that imagery, it just excited him so much that he's like going to sleep with the book.
Yo, that's what's up, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was, a really special moment for me. Yeah, that was really special. And a second moment, I was a resident for Black Rock Senegal, and in my application, I talked about the work that I was doing in Afrofuturism, and at some point, it helps if you're talking about Afrofuturism to go to an African nation and spend some time there. And I wanted to be there to, do some other kind of research and insights and think about storytelling and dance, storytelling as related to dance. And So I got to actually be a resident and be in Dakar, Senegal, for over a month. Kehinde Wiley, who many of you know for having created, Barack Obama's portrait.
Oh, cool.
The one with the flowers behind it?
Yep.
Yeah, it's his residency that he put together, and he wanted artists to, as they think about having residencies or what cities you're supposed to go to think about spending time, in different African cities and engaging with the art and culture there and working there or using, having that influence your work. In the same way that people say, oh, if you're an artist, you should spend time in New York or Paris or Chicago or, cities that come to mind when people say you're an artist or writer, where you should go at some point, right? And Dakar, was among them. And that was a really transformative experience for me. And to think that writing about Afrofuturism in part brought me there in that residency, which was an amazing one. That was very special for me.
That's what's up, and that's those are both two great ones. So hey, man, I don't even know what to say behind that one.
But you the heavy hitters.
Yeah, no, you did. You definitely did. Because those moments, especially both of them, but like something like that with the with the kid, it's like it makes it. You kind of hope or you theorize that will be the end result, and then to have it sort of dictate told to you. That's what I mean. Look, man, I'm giving you a salute. It's a virtual salute because we audio, but I'm giving you a salute on that one.
Okay.
This is the last couple things, and this is about the future, Afrofuturism. But you spoke about you know what I mean? You called that but no. You spoke about the graphic novel that I think you're bringing forth. We looking at something. What did we next year? Any kind of tidbits on that, or we'll wait for later to talk about? Okay.
No, absolutely. Well, the book is called Black Keys, and it's coming out with Megascope Abrams. John Jennings, who we mentioned earlier, he curates that particular label, and it's about these two Egyptian deities who are no longer formally worshipped and come back to kind of live life and to curate lives. So it's a fun story. It's Afrofuturist, it's Afro-Surrealist, and, it takes characters on, I think, a very colorful journey as they sort of follow the meanderings of these particular Egyptian gods who've decided to come back in human form and, engage with us mortals. So that's the story. And Tana Tucker is the illustrator. We were paired together. She's been amazing to work with. And the book comes out we're in 2024. So it's going to come out in 2025.
That's what's up, man. Is it all locked in? Are you guys? Where are you at on the? Is it completed? Are you halfway there or?
Oh yeah. So the manuscript was finished, and when you're working in the publishing circles, you have to do your thumbnails first.
Oh, okay.
And you do the thumbnails. So the book's like almost 250 pages. So
okay.
You do the thumbnails first, you get approval, and then after the thumbnails, you start drawing. So Tana's been drawing the book, and she'll be finished soon, and then we'll start going into the next level. But the images are looking amazing. I can't wait for people to see it. And
sneak preview
putting
now.
this project together.
Say again?
I said we're two women doing this book.
That's what's up. And then shout out to real quick just on Megascope and what John Jennings is doing and Damian Duffy, and I know Stacey Robinson and that whole clique over there, and Al Ball I think had a joint. That's fun. That's dope. And the fact, you guys could collaborate on that. Two women doing it. That's what's up, man. And that's another thing I gotta add to my list. It's a lot. I'm gonna have to listen to this and just add a few things on the list there. And then once again, save a little bit for us to, I want to create too, and have some stuff to go out there. And, I'm just saying, man.
It's so much out here to do now. There's so many ways to create your work and to be in community and to showcase them. I mean, you've experienced that sort of growth and expansion just, being on the comic scene. I mean, being on the indie scene. You've seen how things have evolved.
Oh yeah, we talk. That's a topic that we talk about a lot. And actually, when we end this series, the last interview is going to be me, D-Nick, and Tertel, and we're going to go around table about that very topic. And things, how fast things change. Things have changed in light speed in the last, 3-4 years. Even before the pandemic hit, things were beginning to change, and then that sort of accelerated everything. And so we it's just a topic that we all.
Well, if you're not growing, you're dying. So that's a lot of us don't really like change, but if you're but it's that if in nature, if you're not growing, you're dying. So sometimes it can grow different. Nobody wants an irregular toe, you know what I'm saying? But but that's kind of that's part of the whole journey, I guess, is it has to grow into different ways. Otherwise, everybody gonna be dying.
Yeah, it's man. Listen, we that's another conversation though. We're gonna have that one too. Shout out to Sid, man. Sid Farrell, Glyph X in the building. That's what's up. What up, Sid? But yeah, no, that's one of those topics that, because especially like I said, we're a lot of us are indies. We be on the ground, and even when you're doing stuff for the bigger publishers, you still, gotta grind it out. So yeah, that's definitely a conversation for us to have. Like I said, we've discussed it in small ways and sometimes big ways on this show in varying different topics. But it's always good to get like
something to share too, that when we're doing these kind of works, you're working, in all arenas, right? You're working with bigger spaces. You're working with institutions, you're working with community groups, you're working with, indie spirit spaces, you're working with, it's just a host of, it's a range of ways of getting out different works, because different works have different audiences.
Yeah.
And, I think that's maybe one of the fun ways to look at it.
Yeah. And I'll say this too, and we all know this as creators, like everybody is not gonna like everything you do. You know what I mean? Like, especially like you go into different mediums. You both do actually. And so some people may like one thing and not like the other, and it's something you gotta kind of be prepared for. Or in my instance, it was just a changing of story, and somebody you thinking, oh, I did it, so maybe they'll get it, and they don't. You're like, okay, but no. But like I said, that's definitely a topic that we can actually maybe we can come back and talk about that as well. We had a few people on here. We had a few people in the chat. I'm sure there's a lot of folks listening now who will listen later. I want to do something real quick right now. Just shout out to like I said, this show. I'm gonna bring this full circle to where we started. We do these every February. We have these particular shows, and I wanted to thank the founders of the Black Age. I want to send a shout out to Tertel Only, Yumi Odom, Andre Batch, Joseph Wheeler, for just putting in the work and making it possible, and creating spaces for us to gather and keep doing it. And shout out to Pocket Con and John Jennings and all the folks who rock with Pocket Con and who do, D niggas on the board. Shout out to D for putting that thing together with everything, just giving us spaces so we can do this stuff, man. So just wanted to give a quick.
Man, if it wasn't for the Black Age, there would be no Pocket Con, and if it wasn't for the Black Age, there might not be a Microphone Misfits in comics. I like doing the comic circuit. But we weren't really embraced. We weren't really embraced when we first were touring with the defunct Wizard World, and it wasn't until we were told about Motor City Black Age, where it was like we went out to Detroit and we really got, embraced and supported, loved the Andre Batts, loved the, Maia Crown Williams, R.I.P., rest in power. And then to find out that Black Age started in Chicago was even more dope, and got to build with Tortel. And that's the same reason how Elgin, came up with Pocket Con. It would be none of this without Tortel, and the Black Age movement. So thanks to all of you all and everybody for that.
And you know what else wouldn't do? We wouldn't know each other.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's because I think my first one was at a Black Age, Ytasha. The one I remember distinctly though, but we was tabling to all of us, me, Tortel, you, Yaondi, and I think someone else, but we were all at in front of the Gustavo Museum. I think that's when we actually got to talk and really, you had Rayla there, and you actually had some prints too, which I got a couple of those, and it was fun. That's what this thing is all about that we do. This show, I told you guys, and behind the scenes, just to get these thoughts, these memories, everything on some sort of record, and have it there for forever and ever. And to go out into the interwebs as we discuss these things, because they're ever changing. The landscape is ever changing, and we got to keep doing it and pushing it out there. So, it's just a great thing. Ytasha, Madam Womack, as I say, wanted to thank you for coming down and joining us tonight, man, and just sharing the knowledge. Yes. Getting into this thing that we do, and like I said, we had you on last time. I think that was 2017 or no, 2018. And since then you've done so many things. So you just grown this thing, and Afrofuturism is on your back as you take it out into the world, across country, and around this planet. So when I put that before I was writing notes and I was doing my research, I was like, man, I know this person. You know what I mean? Like she's doing all these, all these things, and I'm being dead serious. Like I really, that's a great thing to see, man. It's just wonderful that you keep, putting it out there and having the energy to go out there and do it, and just, keep on building. And you got, like you said, you got more stuff that's coming out that's in the tank that we'll see later this year, or actually later this month, and next year. So shout out to you, man. And you know how the people are, the people who come through, our little studio audience, Shout out to everybody listening. This is about the time we start to wind it down. Miss Womack, if you want to let the people know where they can find you, and unless D, did you have anything else you want to ask or say?
No, I'm good. Just thank you, Ytasha. Ytasha. Thank you so much. It's always dope to see you. You always have great energy with us whenever we get to see each other at C2E2 and PocketCon and any of the other conventions, Black Age, and just thank you. And you've always shown us love and support. We will always show you the same. Thank you.
Word.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. And And thanks for, documenting the culture and, continuing to foster community. It means so much. And just thanks for being great people all around. I would say, for people who haven't been to comic book conventions, they could think, oh, man, I'm going to go. I might not really know people. But there's people like, the two of you who are at a lot of these conventions who always make yourself available to talk and to connect, and people can vibe with you about comics and ideas. If they have questions about how to get into comics or, just even where to find, where to go in the space, what to do. You always make people feel like they're at home. And so, comics can build community, and you guys play a big role in that, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna end up like weekend before this thing is over. And if you do happen to walk into me and D Nick of the Microphone Misfits at a show, by all means, purchase some at our table. No, but yeah, no, true. Please do that. And we will, of course, offer advice and fellowship and commune, because that's a big thing for me. Like I always say, we're in this thing I don't see like is hierarchies, you know how that stuff can get, but it's like we're all doing this thing in one facet or another. If you just starting out, if you've been doing it for 60 years, we're all one in one pot. So I always see it as that, like to just build, to just talk and just create and do stuff, But as I was saying a moment ago, Ytasha, you want to let the people know where they can find any of your products, or where they can find you on the interwebs. By all means, let them know right now.
Sure. Any of my books you can purchase any way you like. And you could go to YtashaWomack.com, and you can check out the list of books and learn some other information. If you want to learn more about Maya and the Multiverse, which launches February 17th, you could go to the Adler Planetarium website, and you can get your tickets there. And if you want to go check out the Afrofuturism exhibit at the the National Museum of African American History and Culture, you can just go to their site, and the admission's free. You do have to go online, sign up, and you can also buy a book that has essays from the exhibit. As a matter of fact, you can buy the book before you even go there. Kevin Strait and Kinshasa Conwell co-edited the book. I wrote 2 essays for it. And you can get that book at your favorite bookstore. You can order it from them, or you can go on Amazon or Thrift Books, any of your favorite websites, and you can order the book there. It's a really great collector's edition as well. Same with Black Panther, A Cultural Exploration. You can order that anywhere.
That's what's up. Look, man, you know how I feel. We talk all the time, whether it's stuff like this or even behind the scenes when we see each other at shows or just in the neighborhood, you know what I mean? So you definitely always welcome to our show. Thank you for coming down tonight, blessing us with everything that you did tonight. I mean, it's what's up. And like I said, we're going to have to probably circle back and do an in-depth talk about the Black Panther book and just go in about, just everything as it comes to, the creation of it and the stuff that's inside and what may be next as it relates to that. So just wanted to thank you one last time for coming down, and until our next journey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Man, let me tell y'all something. That was Ytasha Womack, Chicago stand-up. I met her, like she said, at Black Age Chicago at Kenwood, and we've been building ever since. And I've been able to see this happen in real time, like over a decade plus now. The journey she's been on, and just the consistent bringing of dope stuff to the world, from the ether into our universe, and it's really cool to see, and really cool to see blossom. When you see a person like that giving that, you want to give them their flowers, and just really, I know that's a term that's being used a lot lately, but we're going to use it here for that, because she deserves them, and I'm wishing her the best as she continue to, like you just heard a moment ago, she still got stuff that she's building that's coming out that will continue to come out. So shout out to her for that, man. But yeah, it's one of those ones, D. It's one of those ones.
Yeah.
If y'all don't know, D is currently he came down. He's at a convention, and he came down to join us to still do this show. I'm not even sure where are you? Are you in the city, or where are you?
It's in the city. It's downtown Chicago. Like the what is the name of that hotel? It's like the waterfront, like the water lake by over there. It's beautiful hotel. I'm at Capricorn. It's a sci-fi convention, so it's dope. And the Microphone Mistress will be performing tomorrow at Capricorn.
That's what's up. And if you go down there, not only watch them perform, they're going to be vending as well. So hit up the table, grab some dope joints. You will not be disappointed. You definitely won't be disappointed in the show. They put on every time, every single time. So shout out to all the Misfits that's in the building. Or I know Mel's usually in the building, but, shout out to you guys rocking that show. Wanted to get into something else. I know sometimes when we do this show, we won't have like the itinerary of what's coming next. We got a next guest for certain that's locked in. He's maybe listening tonight. Shout out to Damian Duffy. He's coming next week, next Friday, to continue this what we're doing with the Black Age Central volumes. He's going to be talking about the Black Age. So there were these two great books that were done, black comics. One was in 2010, and I think the other one came in 2018. But anyway, we're going to talk to Damian about that, his work with Megascope, and the stuff that he's done. I know he's done a Kendrick graphic novel. We'll be talking about that. Shout out to, this is from the Octavia Butler novel of the same name. We're going to get into how that came into being and how did that even, how's it doing and what's next for him. So that's going to be fun. We're going to break that all down and just have a good time like we had tonight. This is our first time back, in about a month and a half. So, we're going to be kind of, being more active in the next month and probably next couple months. Or actually going forward, because we got a full list that I'm working on to get people on the show. Yeah,
the punks are back. The punks are back.
Yeah, man. Misfit punks. I like the sound of that. Punk misfits. I gotta try to. We go work. It's a nice little amalgam. We go try to do that. But no. Straight up. I want to thank everybody else who came down tonight. Shout out to Sid. Shout out to the Wise Serpent. Shout out, and I'm glad you guys came down and enjoyed it in the chat and fellowship with us. And like I said, people who will come down and check this out later, and that's about it, man. We've been a little longer tonight, just to give us the leeway in case we really went, needed the extra time. But I think we now are at the point where we need to close the show. So, D-Nick, if you let the people know, you just did, but again, where they can find you on the interwebs and in real life, by all means, let them know.
Oh yes, we're at Capricorn this weekend. We will be at the Hideout next week. We'll be performing with Alfred Banks and David Lopez. Alfred Banks is with Sax Ave at the Hideout. Like, Sax Ave is nominated for a Grammy. They got nominated for a Grammy, and so big up to Sax Ave. We'll be rocking with them next Thursday coming up. This Thursday coming up, and you can just find out all Microphone Mistress stuff. We got a lot down the pipeline. Just go to themicrophonemistress.com and find all our socials, the whole nine. Themicrophonemisfits.com. That's THEMICROPHONEMISFITZ. The Microphone Misfits. Who else could it be?
Word. And for me, just Punks of Rage. That's it. Google it and you'll find my entire life. PUNXofRAGE. You Google that, my everything comes up. And then Only Studios, ONLISTUDIOS. Check out Turtel Only. Like I said, who's behind this series that we're doing. Go and give him a look and see what he's done in his whole life. He's a icon, and you should get to know what he's been able to actually do in his life. So that's it for now. Next week, February 9th, the same time, 8 p.m. Central Time. Come on down and join us. We're going to have another one. Peace, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Oh, say go. Oh, say go. The violators, knuckleheads, crumbs, and chain snatchers, terrorizing with numbers, attitude, and stature. Playing tough guys, but really chatty patties, picking on innocent women and children just like Gabby. Tacky, driving Rage City furious, but the one bringing the fight to them, serious. Put hands on you, feet and elbows. She's down to knuckle up with any and all foes. Her bros, B-boys, roughneck skaters. Rico, Charles, known as the Jawbreaker. Handle you today and not mañana. With the one-woman army they call Azana. Biker, duplicator, putting you in traction with the divine cleric and elder name Reaction. Vigilante justice, no apologies. Geneticists with bronze, we lead to prodigy. Speaking of brawn, this last cat's a massive titan. 3 bats, a hockey mask, and a knack for fighting. The Dodger, smash your head and rib cage. Violators beware, they are the punks of rage.